Hello everybody, my name is Starruptor and welcome to the channel. I'm finally reading the Witcher books. After playing 4 games and watching an entire season of television, I'm convinced I need to read these books. They're created by Andrzej Sapkowski, and this was a Polish book series that in 2007 started to be translated into English. So today we're starting with The Last Wish. This is the first book he ever wrote, and I also want to mention I picked it up in a set of 2 books. The next one is Sword of Destiny. I'll be talking about that in the future. On the spine of this set, it looks like there's 8 stories in the Witcher series. So we're diving into this. We have Geralt of Rivia, and this is our main character. He is a Witcher, and in this era, in this world that they live in, it's called the continent. You have these elder races, the dwarves and the elves, but you also have humankind, and mixed in with all that, you have monsters, some creatures like dragons and giant undead things and whatnot. And it's the Witchers who are actually humans that are mutated. They have sight that they can see in the dark. They take these potions that make them extra strong. They can use abilities called signs to create barriers around themselves, to kind of like use shockwaves to push enemies back, and many other abilities like that. They are sort of like the bounty hunters. They walk to town making a living off of getting contracts from the townsfolk that are having problems with monsters. So it's their job to go out there, collect these carcasses of these monsters, deliver them back to the people, and get paid. That is their profession. And unfortunately for people like Geralt of Rivia, many people look down on Witchers. They look at them as, yeah, they're just mutants. They're walking around. They don't deserve to, sit with us or to converse with us. They're like other creatures entirely. And at this point in time in the story, it looks like the monsters are slowly getting overtaken by the humans. There's a lot less of the monsters. And in this book, we get to see the adventures of Geralt early on in his career as a Witcher. We see him making mistakes plenty and having to deal with things that were a lot more real to me than I expected from a fantasy book. There are elements in here, choices, consequences, and that's why I think this book really shines and why they made a video game series based off it, because a lot of times Geralt is making decisions, the lesser evil. That's a big theme that comes up in this book, and it reminds me of a lot of RPG choices you're making in video games. If I kill this person, it affects it this way. If I don't kill this person, then something bad happens this way. You have to choose the lesser evil in that regard. So a lot of the critical thinking that is going on in The Witcher is from his perspective and showing you a different kind of realism, and again, in a world full of monsters, which is something crazy to me. I think the lore that is built up in this first book alone is just mind-blowing. You're dealing with wizards. You're dealing with laws of surprise. You're dealing with things that I've never even heard of before remotely in a fantasy book. This is a very mature story. Warning you, there's lots of gore and lots of sexual content in these books, so you will be experience that quite often in this. We not only have Witcher, but we also have a character named Dandelion. If you've played the games, if you've watched the series on Netflix, you're going to be familiar with that character, as well as Yennefer of Vengergard. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. I'm probably butchering it. It's okay. But what I will say is there's also very descriptive. Andrews is very descriptive on his writing style to be able to explain where you are currently in the story. As far as for some criticisms for The Last Wish, I will say that some of the language was a little bit off-putting. I don't know if it was just from the translation from Polish or if it was just that specific part of the story. But for me, it's like that high English, that old English, where it could be a little bit hard, especially with the pronunciations. I thought it was interesting that there was the less fortunate folk that the Witcher came across, and they're not as educated, it seems. So there's kind of slurred, slower speech and whatnot. Was a little bit hard for me to pick up at points while reading through the story. Also, this is a very non-linear story. There are points where it jumps all over the place, and that was a big deal for me because I'm not really sure where the story was going as I first started reading it. It was a little off-putting, a little bit confusing. You're in the future, then you're in the past, and you're in the future. You're not sure where they meet up because you do this multiple times. You're not sure which event comes first. It never really tells you that. So that definitely threw it off a little bit for me. But with that being said, I got to give The Last Wish a score of an 8.5 out of 10. With those criticisms being there, I still think that this is a big achievement for fantasy. I felt the same things I felt when reading Lord of the Rings, as well as A Song of Ice and Fire while reading this book. There's some really awesome revolutionary type of content in this book for the fantasy genre, but again, it adds that realism. You get Geralt of Rivia. He's struggling with his identity. He's struggling with, what he should be in this world that is slowly dying out of monsters. What his job is, what his role on this earth is. Looking at things like the combat, the fighting sounds really cool, reads really well, the action in this book. So for more book reviews and more on The Witcher, you can subscribe to this channel. That way you'll never miss any other content. What do you think about The Witcher? Have you read this one? What do you think about the series in general? Let's talk about it in the comments section down below. That's going to do it for me, Staraptor. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @StarRaptor.